Before we start the meeting, I would like to take a few moments to remind those who are attending in person about the rules of decorum for all council and committee meetings. Council meetings are a place where local democracy is carried out in a respectful, open, and safe environment. The council chamber is also a workplace, and we are committed to maintaining a safe and respectful environment for council members, staff, and members of the public, consistent with WorkSafe BC requirements. In accordance with our procedure bylaw, disruptive or disrespectful behavior will not be tolerated. We ask that there be no cheering, jeering, or other interruptions from the gallery. This ensures that all speakers, whether members of the public, staff, or council, can present their views without distraction, intimidation, or fear of ridicule. If a disruption occurs, those responsible will be asked to stop. Should the behavior continue, individuals may be required to leave the meeting as permitted under Section 133 of the Community Charter. If necessary, Council may call a recess to restore order in the chamber. We appreciate everyone's cooperation in maintaining a respectful atmosphere. By doing so, we can ensure that this meeting and future meetings are productive and focused on the business of the municipality. And just a reminder to those attending by Zoom to keep comments respectful as well. Thank you. The April 28th, 2026 regular council meeting is called to order at 4:02. Council would like to acknowledge the Ucluelet, on whose traditional territories the District of Ucluelet operates. Audience members and delegates are advised that this proceeding is being video recorded and broadcast on YouTube and Zoom, which may store data on foreign servers. Are there any late items? Nope. Seeing none, I'll move that the April 28th, 2026 regular council meeting agenda be adopted as presented.
I'll second.
Councillor Hoare seconds. All in favor? None opposed. That carries. Moving on to meeting minutes. Are there any errors or omissions for the minutes of April 14th, 2026? No, seeing none, I'll move that the minutes of the April 14th, 2026 regular council meeting be adopted as presented.
I'll second.
Councillor Hoare seconds. All in favor? None opposed. That carries. We have one delegation on the agenda today. It is the Coastal Family Resource Coalition regarding community health priorities from the Coming Together Forum, and it will be presented by Brooke Wood. Welcome, Brooke.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Great to be here today. I'm grateful to be meeting with you today on unceded Tsilhqot'in territory, and just wanted to take the opportunity to share with this council and hopefully help guide some of your planning around health priorities in the region. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I think that's the process they had wanted us to use. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Great. So a little bit of background on the Coastal Family Resource Coalition. First of all, I want to thank you for the council grant. We are working actively with that grant, really focusing on some of the Ucluelet priorities around youth services, as well as updating the directory for health. And the coalition started as an interdisciplinary network of service providers and community organizations. It was formed as a response to funding cuts back in 2003, and it is a network built to share resources and reduce duplication and improve the overall health in the West Coast. How we work and what we do. So we have a monthly coalition meeting and we move throughout the region. So, you know, we'll meet from Ahousaht right out to Makoa with Tofino and Ucluelet in between. And then at each of those meetings, we go through the community identified priorities, health priorities, also youth priorities in those communities. We host the action tables. We participate in local planning tables. This includes the primary care network, as well as on the Alberni Clayoquot Health Network. And our key funders currently are Ministry of Child and Family Development, as well as the Clayoquot Biosphere Trust. Alberni Clayoquot Health Network is no longer a funder. We're on our last year of funding with them just because the funding had ended. And we also host the West Coast Literacy Program funded through Dakota Literacy. And so that is promoting early years literacy, and that's working with all the daycares throughout the region and the early years groups. So we host 3 working groups. One is the youth working group, one is the early years working group, and one is the harm reduction working group. And so these groups go and they focus on targeted priorities throughout the region. And so some examples of some of the work these groups have gone towards is the youth workers really identified transportation. And so we lobbied with a lot of other people, Marcy, Faye, all the principals, all of you there, and we're able to like successfully be part of getting BC Transit on the coast through all the years of hard work. The early years working group, they were able to support the free to play program that just came in the region and really start implementing some free to play work in the daycares in the coming year. And the harm reduction working group, what I want to note right now is we just received a grant from the Ministry of Health, and we're going to be hosting a region-wide summit in the fall on mental health and substance use in the region. So more to come on that. Some of the work that we also do with that is working with Faye and other community partners, the RCMP, the hospital, and we're working to help with the municipal alcohol strategy in Tofino. And I know Ucluelet is doing some work around that as well. So what I wanted to share with you today is the results from the Coming Together Forum, which we hosted last May in Ucluelet. And so what I've learned over the years is these are the top 10 community health priorities, and people are like, oh, what's number 1? And we don't like to put a number beside them. However, I will say they are in the indication of the number of times I heard it or it was said throughout the data. We also worked with a group of Leadership Vancouver Island students who sat outside both of the co-ops to, in addition to the 90 people that attended the forum. So we also got community input from there, and then we used minutes from throughout the coalition meeting and vital signs. So I think no surprise to many, affordable and inclusive housing, access to healthcare and primary care providers, mental health supports for all, transportation access and equity. There were some caveats in there, so everyone was really happy with BC Transit, but there was some issues with seniors accessing that services, and then there was access to Hitatsu was limited, and there was less opportunity for youth to get home from school activities at night. Food security and self-reliance, youth empowerment and retention, cultural safety, Indigenous sovereignty and healing, health equity and system navigation, community recreation and wellness infrastructure, education, literacy, and life skills. So those were the top 10 priorities. And so what can we do with that? So now we have all this information, and as all of us care and want to work towards these, we participants identified the need to advocate to politicians and health leadership for the changes we want to see in our health and public health systems, the importance of core funding based on need, not population size, cannot be stressed enough. I don't think that's a surprise to anyone listening today. Advocacy efforts will require partnerships and collaborations between service agencies, municipal and First Nation governments and community members, and participants express the need for more community engagement and forums to inform local decision making, promote collaboration, and support social equity and justice in the region. So those were sort of the key things that we wanted to identify moving forward. I just wanted to highlight, I think I already shared this slide with you before, that funding is tight for the coalition, but we're moving forward. I wanted to provide an opportunity for questions or further discussion. And the recommendation from us to council and mayor today is that we get a representative from the District of Ucluelet to support health promotion and collaboration. I will say Nyla Atiana is attending regular meetings, and it has been really, really great to have the municipality staff participating in the tables on their staff time. And I would say it really makes a difference to have that voice there. And so we would love to have someone from the District of Ucluelet start attending some of our meetings, would be what we would really like. And that's it for me, unless there's any questions.
Great. Thank you, Brooke. Have you not had a rep from the District of Ucluelet in the past?
Mark Boyson used to attend, and I don't believe there has been anyone since Mark left.
Well, in his absence, we could suggest Councillor Anderson.
Councillor Anderson, I think both sit on the
ACHN.
ACHN.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Councillor Anderson would be great, and I appreciate that. But I do find sometimes for continuity, it's fantastic if we could have a staff member attend. But I would really like Councillor Anderson to attend as well. So, Sean, do you want me to send you an invitation?
He's not with us
Okay.
today.
Okay.
That's why I suggested that.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
But we will mention it to him.
Okay.
And just a quick question: do you have a date yet for that fall summit?
We're looking at the first Wednesday in November.
Great. Questions from council? No, nothing. Okay, thank you for, Councillor Noel.
Well, there was sort of an ask there for staff, so I think she appreciated what I got. She appreciated what getting Councillor Anderson. Maybe a question to Richard. Maybe you got some comments there. I think that's the big ask, and I'd like to give her some direction.
Thank you, Mayor. To Councilor Noel, absolutely, we'll be in contact with you, and we'll get you some. If staff had been there in the past, it was continuity. We'll definitely find some way of making sure we show you some support that way of staff time.
Really appreciate that support. Thank you.
Thanks for your presentation.
Thanks.
All right, is there any unfinished business? Seeing none, we have 4 reports on the agenda today. The first report is the multipurpose sports facility, and it will be presented by Richard Harding and then Abby Fortune.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Very excited to bring back the next phase of us working towards the multi-sports facility that the community's been wanting for quite a while. And so in front of you tonight is a report with some background of the community engagement Council directed us to proceed with. I will turn it over quickly to Ms. Fortune, and then we also have Mr. Doug Warnell, who is the sports architect. He's in chambers tonight, which will also be providing some council some background of how we got here, some of the benefits, and then if council does choose an option, what we will see as we go forward on detailed design. So that's where we have one of the main recommendations to you tonight is an option to pick if you'd like us to proceed with that detailed. And again, Mr. Warnell will explain that. Then we have a few other recommendations. One is working with the user groups on the detailed design if council so desires, and then also sending it to the accessibility committee that Councilor Noel sits on for review and comment, as well as there's an opportunity for some funding. And again, we can express more of what we need to have in place for that. We need to have something kind of shelf ready that we can go for that funding. So we'll do that. With that, I'll ask Ms. Fortune to kind of go through some of our findings and the details, and then she will introduce Mr. Warnell. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Council from downtown Vancouver. Before you, you have several recommendations regarding the multipurpose sports facility to authorize detailed design and costing of Phase 1, Option 2. With this process, staff would consult with the user groups as well as refer the draft detailed design to the Accessibility Committee. Finally, we are requesting that Council authorizes submission of expression of interest and application from funding to the Canada Build Community Strongs Funds, which just was announced last week. Once completed, staff will return with the final design, detailing, and costing for Council's consideration. As you're aware, on Wednesday, March 25th, the District of Ucluelet hosted an open house to gain feedback on the multipurpose sports facility location and viability. We welcomed over 100 community members. At the open house, staff presented 3 options for the location and high-level design of this facility, as well as a survey with some basic questions surrounding the project. The key findings were strong demand for year-round recreation and support for the facility. Dog park was a key component of the project. Preference for functionality, not over-flexible design. Location considerations were brought into play, and using the facility as a community emergency hub was touted as a strong need. At this time, I'm going to pass the presentation over to Doug Warnell, our sports architect, to discuss site location, noise considerations, as well as potential selection of the building type and costs. And then Mr. Harding is going to discuss the Build Community Strong Fund as in terms of that option. So Doug, with no further ado, I'll pass it over to you.
Thanks, Ms. Fortune.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're just going to basically good afternoon, Mayor and Council. We're basically going to take you through the decision-making processes so you understand how we got to where we got to. So this is the existing conditions, and I know that we had some input saying that we possibly could put the field or the building onto the sports fields, but in practicality, we can't because each of those fields has a safety zone, and the busiest fields are the small ones because most of sport membership is at the younger levels. So we would have to disrupt what was there in order to put it on, and there's very limited flat land space in this area. So we felt that it wasn't a good solution as long as we could accommodate everybody doing what else we were doing. So this screen is basically telling you why we felt we couldn't go on to the main playing field area with the building. So next slide. So the buildings we're looking at, we're not looking at architectural wonders. We're looking at practicality and performance. So there's a number of ways you can cover a space. In the top left-hand corner is what's called a sprung structure. It's aluminum frame with a fabric skin. Then there's the wood, a similar one in wood. That's the top right-hand corner. That's a wood frame with, again, a fabric skin. In the lower left-hand corner is a bubble. You're all familiar with tennis bubbles and things like that. They're air supported. And the only difference is that they're the cheapest of all the models because they have no structure. They're essentially just held in place by forced air. In the lower right-hand corner is a steel, basically a pre-manufactured, prefabricated steel structure. You're familiar with those. Anytime you go to an industrial area, you see these buildings of all sizes made with steel. They're quite expensive because it's just the sheer amount of building material in it. And then in the middle is a concrete block. This is pretty much standard construction for, or tilt up. The most expensive because just the materials required. So you're building a wall out of block instead of fabric. And so when we're looking at these, the three fabric skins are the best bang for the buck. The interesting thing about them is because of the nature of the way the structure is built or air support is that you get a higher ceiling at no extra cost, which is great because that's important for all kinds of sports to have some clearance. So we are concentrating on the three fabric skin buildings. Next slide, please. So we did try to figure out if we could put this at the seaplane base rec center, but it doesn't work because it's too disruptive during construction. So because to build our structure, we'd have to tear down the existing building. We're right on the edge. You can't do construction right up to a wall of another building. And we'd wipe out all the parking for a couple years minimum. And so we just felt that this was trying to basically shoehorn in something that didn't really fit there. It would disrupt a number of activities that happen there, and it just didn't seem the right fit. I mean, if the other solutions weren't as good, then we'd try to find a way to squeeze this in, but it didn't make sense to keep pushing the solution forward. Next slide, please. So we came back to this site. Now, the nice thing about this site is that it fits nicely. It's got parking access right off the main street. The disadvantage of this one, and we'll get it, is that it cut the dog park in half. So we'll adjust that in a minute. But you can see the type of sports we were looking at were basketball, tennis, pickleball. Sorry. Oh, okay. Technological wonder. And so there's a number of sports you can do here, but because it's a big open space, there's a wide variety of things you could do here. I mean, it could be an emergency shelter, yes. It also could be farmer's market. It could be an art show. It could be for dog training. there's no end because it's not a space filled with rooms. So it has a lot of adaptability. So we're happy for that. But what this solution needs to address more is the fact that we took out some of the dog parks. So the next slide, please. So what we did is except for the wetlands, which you can sort of see there in the lower left-hand corner, all those trees that you see that are close to the open area are scrub trees. In other words, they're not old growth or trees of value. And so we can actually take a lot of those trees out. That's sort of here we'll try so that red line, we can actually create a park the same size as the existing one, but actually give a longer dog run. So just for straight sprinting right here, it's actually longer than anything in the existing one. So, and it makes economic sense for us. We have to take some material, just a little bit of material to build our foundation. And instead of having to truck it somewhere, we can actually leave it on site and mold that area into a nice space. We're also like to look at keeping some of the trees on site as a variety for dog activities. So we are, in this solution, we are giving the same amount of space as what's existing. It will be fenced, it will have a shelter, and we will have the double entrance into the space. So, and we will build this first as we go along. So we feel that we've achieved providing for the dog walks and the free run areas for the dog owners without compromising for them. And so we're happy to have been able to achieve that. The nice thing about it too is that because it's an open space where dogs running, at times we can still allow parks vehicles to pass through that area, necessarily not, during the day. So it doesn't interrupt with parks operations either. So we're quite happy with this. And the nice thing about it is that you always want to bring a lot of events together. So, a dog park, soccer, baseball, court spaces. We have a washroom on the site already. That kind of busyness keeps eyes on the community. In other words, keeps nefarious activities away, and it also makes for an engaging space socially. And so we're quite happy that this does work out quite nicely. So we're convinced that this is the right site for it. Next slide, please. So one of the concerns was for pickleball, and I understand that. Pickleball it's immensely popular for all ages. And one of the problems with pickleball is that the sound is quite disruptive. So what we've proposed, let me just use a little pointer here. So this is a kind of a soft fabric panel that is put on fences that are surrounding construction areas. Its sole intention is to reduce the decibel level of noise from construction sites for the neighborhoods. So by placing these on critical sides of the building, you will basically reduce the noise levels down to what is acceptable, which is like background conversation. Now, just if you want an understanding of sound is kind of like water. If we had a soundproof room, but you had a gap under the door, sound escapes, just like water would escape. So you need to stop sound from escaping, which is what the thing we hang on the fence would do. Unlike water, though, sound only travels in straight lines. Now, low frequency sound does tend to wrap around corners a bit, but it still goes in a straight line. If you ever wonder why a fire truck has that siren, then occasionally it goes bomp, bomp, that low intensity noise allows the sound of the fire truck to wrap around buildings to warn people. So, but it's still going in a straight line. So how far does it take? It takes about 100 meters before you get down to the 30 decibel level, which is like quiet conversation. So our concern was, what happens to the houses across the street? All of them are further than 100 meters away from the sound source. So remember that we have the 12-foot fence with the fabric on it. So being next to the fence completely blocks it out. So it's like a sight line. So we walk back until we get a sight line that goes over the fence, and then whatever it sees, is that more than 100 meters away? If it is, then we've reduced the sound decibels to just background noise. If you're walking your dogs and you're next to the fence, obviously the sound can't get to you because the sight line is past where people are walking their dogs. Doesn't mean that you won't hear it, but it's down to a level of like background conversation. Now, dogs' ears are more sensitive than human ears by about 15 decibels, but we still managed to bring it down to a level that's fine for dogs. So we're happy that we can achieve this. Now, of course, if phase 2 is approved and it gets covered, then that eliminates everything because the covering creates the sound barrier for the building. And that's the last slide. So what I would say is that we have the solution for the reason we selected the site is a sound one. We can accommodate all users, but the next step has to be proper engagement. So what you've seen here is just sort of a concept. So a workable one, obviously, that can be costed, but we need to now go to a phase where we're actually talking to stakeholders and getting the ideas of what needs to be in the facility and how even the dog park, I mean, which I wandered around today, how do you create the challenges and toys and things for dogs? Because if we're going to rebuild it, let's do it right. So that's a next stage, and I think that's basically where we need to go from here. And I'll turn it over to Abby again.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions or?
Thanks, Doug. And I'm
I
actually
do-
going to turn it back to Richard.
I actually have a question, if I
Okay.
may.
Absolutely, Mayor. I just was going to mention a little bit on the some funding stuff, but it's, I think maybe with Mr. Warnell up, it's a good time for questions.
So what you showed us on your slide presentation was option 1 and option 3, but you didn't.
Option
show-
1 and 2. 1 and
No,
2.
option 2 did not have that big long run. That was option 3.
Oh, that's my mistake. Sorry.
Yeah, and I think from having been at the open house, I think
Yes.
option 2 was really what
Yeah.
people were
So
more
my
inclined.
apologies to everyone on that. So what it is can we get the slide back on? I don't know how I missed that. That's an embarrassing thing, but
No worries.
one there. Okay, so essentially
Yes.
we have to
Sorry,
avoid,
through the mayor, that is actually option 2.
is it option 2? The option
Yeah.
1 went, or option 3 went all the way down past here. We're
That's
sort of
correct.
ending. So yeah, regardless, we are going to avoid the wetland, and someday it would be nice to put maybe like a boardwalk deck out so people can actually enjoy and have an interpretive center. But all of this dark green is cedars. We don't want to touch them. We want to just do the scrub so that we end up having a 1 acre area along here, which is the size of the current park, but with a nice long dog run right here. So again, the design wants to avoid the mature cedars, wants to avoid the wetland, and just take out scrub trees to the point where we can create the space we need for the dog area.
Okay, I'm confused. Option 2 had no dog run.
Well, it's not, okay, so in option 3, there was a long dog run that went all the way down to somewhere near the food bank. What I'm saying is right now, this is the current, basically the baseball park is where the dog runs. So if you took the longest spot from here to here or from here to here, that distance isn't as great as the straight run along this edge. So depending what kind of dog you have, if you have a whippet, you want to let it just get out there and race once in a while and go crazy. So we have allowed for a longer space for just pure sprinting, as well as enough room that it's the same as the current dog park. So yeah, option 3 was really long, went all the way down almost to the street.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions?
Any questions for Mr. Waddell?
No, I just want to
Councillor
say
Noah?
thank you. You answered the community's questions, and thank you for looking and being so clear with your presentation today. So
You're welcome.
no questions from me.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Harding, are you up
Yes,
next?
thank you, Mayor. The only thing we want to just mention is there is some funding, other funding sources coming out. As you know, Phase 1, Council has provided funding for us to complete Phase 1. Now we want to continue where opportunities exist to look for Phase 2 funding. And since our last meeting, the Build Community Strong Fund is out looking for expressions of interest. So we're asking for Council to give staff direction to once we have, if council picks a design to go detailed, we'd like to utilize that to show, once we have some designs and costings that we can be shelf ready, that we can then send to them an expression of interest for that funding.
And was that the community stream? There are several streams.
Yes. yeah.
Available,
So
yeah.
the direct delivery stream appears to be a good fit for what we're looking for. Ms. Fortune, did we miss anything?
No, that is correct. That's what we're looking at. So at this point in time, all they're looking at is expression of interest, and I believe we're in a position where we could, with council's permission, move forward on that end.
Any questions for Ms. Fortune? Councillor Noel?
Would we need any letters of support for those, for that letters of support for that first phase? Or would that come later, Ms. Fortune?
Through the mayor, that would probably come later. This is just a very preliminary
Yeah.
stage, but certainly compiling letters of support would probably go a long way as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, there are 4 recommendations, if anybody would be interested in moving those. Councillor Mafty?
I will move that council authorize the detailed design and costing of phase 1, option 2 of the multipurpose sports facility concept as outlined in the report number 26-50.
Second.
I think you can say the "and" part as well.
And that staff return with final design details for council's consideration prior to the tendering of the project.
Councillor Noel seconds. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, that carries.
I'll further move that council have staff consult with the user groups on option 2 detailed design.
Second.
Councillor Noel seconds. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, that carries.
I'll further move that council refer the draft detailed design to the accessibility committee for review and comment.
Second.
Councillor Noel seconds. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, that carries.
And I will further move that council authorize the submission of expression of interest and application for funding to the Canada Build Community Strong Fund.
Second.
Councillor Noel seconds. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, that carries. Excellent.
Thank you.
Council.
Thanks, Ms. Fortune.
Thank you.
All right, the next report is titled Development Variance Permit for Lot 13, Front Yard Setbacks and Parking, and it will be presented by Tyler Brown, Director of Planning and Strategic Initiatives.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The report before you tonight for consideration deals with a series of variances for what's known as Lot 13 or First Light, as well as a covenant amendment. Both items are on the agenda to be considered. I'll deal with the proposed covenant first. This would impact lots 20, 22, 23, 24, and 25. And it would allow roof eaves to project up to 600 millimeters, roughly 2 feet, into established green space buffers, only for those specific lots. That projection is consistent with some of the setback projections within the zoning bylaw, and that's where we borrowed that language from. There is 3 sets of variances requested. The first is a front yard setback variance to reduce the front yard setback to 0 meters for lots 13, 14, 18, and 33. For context on that, a previous development permit was issued to reduce those from 3 meters to 1 meter. However, the physical constraints of the pre-built homes and the size of the homes necessitate a further reduction to 0 meters to be accommodated on the site. The second variance, or the second kind of grouping of variances, is only for Lot 1, and that is the requirement that parking be on site for Lot 1 to be eliminated through the variance and could be accommodated on the road. We have communicated with the fire department and just to make sure that if that council does approve that variance, there would be minimal impact or no impact to the potential for fire response if necessary for those lots around there. And finally, the third a lumping of variance which impacts the most lots. It affects 23 specific lots, lots 2 to 5, lots 10 to 14, lots 16 to 17, lots 19 to 29, and lot 32. This would be to, again, a variance to the requirement for on-site parking, but in this case, it would be the size of the parking, and it's quite tight, and staff were concerned that if someone was to place a fence on their property, it could impact somebody's ability with respect to the unit, and also any fencing for someone to pull into their driveway and open their doors with enough space to get out of their vehicles. At this stage, all lots are owned by the developer, and if this variance is granted, it would require easements on those parcels to make sure that no fencing is ever put in place that would limit someone's ability to open their car doors. Taken together, the covenant and the variances ultimately are needed to allow the development to proceed on those lots impacted. We've tried to just be very factual in the staff report for council's consideration. With respect to the setback, in an ideal circumstance, there would be yard space in front of these units. However, due to the green space covenants and the size of the units, the developer is requesting that be relaxed to 0. There was some confusion, I think, in the community with respect to where the setbacks to the road might be realized. In particular, along Marine Drive, there is road dedication there that was taken and is treated like a buffer. The variances before you tonight are not proposing any intrusion into that. And while it is labeled as road on the site plan, and it is road dedication, its intention from conception of the development was to serve as a buffer and green space. If that is something of concern to council, we can of course bring back that later with a park dedication bylaw if you would like to see that enshrined in park or some other mechanism. But I just wanted to be very clear that there's no change to that in its intended purpose. And the covenant, like I said, is approximately 2 feet, would allow up for projections up to 2 feet. It only impacts lots 20, 22, 23, 24, and 25. And there would be no intrusion beyond that into the protected areas through the covenant or the green spaces through that covenant for those lots, and all other lots would need to abide by the full parameters of the covenant. Happy to answer any questions, Mayor and Council, and I do know the development proponent is here also if Council has questions for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. We did receive quite a number of letters and correspondence regarding this item. And so just to clarify some of what those people were asking about or thinking was happening, will there be any more trees removed from the property? I know. Within respect to the green space covenants, we do know of one particular property owner has concern about a hazard tree, but any tree removal within those protected green spaces area would only be removed in the event that they are deemed a hazard tree by a qualified arborist. So I don't want to say on record there would be absolutely no trees removed because there's always that potential for hazard trees to be removed, especially when it comes to life or property safety. But with respect to the development, there has been no request at this point to simply remove trees. Okay, so the covenant is strictly to allow the roof eaves to project 2 feet further than they originally were intended. Correct, to a maximum of 2 feet. Might not utilize that fully with all the particular properties, but yes, would never exceed a maximum of 2 feet. Okay, and then another issue that came up was parking on Marine Drive. When you were talking about one particular property needing to park on the road, you're talking about the interior road, not Marine Drive. Is that right? Correct. That would be on Spruce Street, which is lot 1, which is one of the furthest lots from Marine Drive. Right. Okay. Any questions from council? Councillor Hoare?
I seem to recall that when we were first visiting the variance for the lot setbacks, part of that was because it was the front porch that would would be butting out over the setback. So again, there is something. It's not like your front door is right on the roadway. I'm just clarifying that for.
That is correct. And I would say on, just for council's awareness on some of the units, the developer is also reducing the porch length, not removing, to make attempts to comply as much as possible with the setbacks and making sure the units fit. So it's not just all variances being asked for, but to answer your question very specifically, there would be front porches on these units.
Kind of an aesthetic thing. So the ones that we've got the variance for the parking, because it does become a slightly narrow parking space if the part that's solely defined on each lot. So those ones would not be able to put a fence. So if I had lot 23, I couldn't put a fence up between my lot and lot 24 or whatever the numbers are. Because that might impact somebody's ability to open a car door. Is that correct? Or would you be able to build a fence?
Through you, Mayor, I think it would be very circumstantial. There may be instances where the easement is in place to protect future property owners in the event that they have a wide car. If there is circumstances where there would be, it wouldn't have impact and there's agreement from both property owners that it makes sense to put in the fence, that would be permissible. But the easement is really there to protect in the future for the circumstances where not all vehicles are the same width. And so making sure that someone doesn't purchase a housing unit, but they have the type of vehicle that now there's a circumstance where they can't open their car doors.
I just thought I'd clarify that because some people are very much about privacy or perhaps trying to keep the deer out of their space.
Good point. Any other questions for staff? Would any members of the public affected by this development variance permit like to speak to council? Yes, could you go to the podium, please? And just state your name and address, please.
Hello, I'm David Barshat, and it's an address.
Address, please.
Well, I'm hoping to move it to lot 22.
Okay, great.
So I'm directly affected by this because I have recently moved to Euclid and I'm renting right now, and I would love to move into my new house. So I would really appreciate you guys doing these meetings and moving things along quickly. And I wanted to say that I've been on site today, and like all of these are just standard modifications to things that are going to be livable. Like he's not going to, it's great, but if you get it done quickly and get a rent, have a place to live. Nice.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else here that is affected by this DVP that would like to speak? Yes.
Hello, my name's Lou. I live at 1301 Pine right now. I'm renting there. Me and my partner have bought into the First Light, so we are also affected, like David, on the completion of this project. My comment was more so to the issues with the fencing, I guess. We were on site today too, and it is true that these are super tight units. And like they said, maybe fences can be built between some of them. But the privacy concern is something that, or like keeping deer out, it does seem like keeping fences from some of the units does kind of impact the ability to use the driveway or the sheds and that kind of stuff. But yeah, that was just my one comment on this project. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to this DVP that's affected by it? Yes.
Yeah, I just
Just a name and address, please.
yeah, Rich Ronietz. I live on Rainforest Lane.
I'm all in favor of moving this project ahead in a timely manner and feel for the people that were essentially ripped off by the developer. I think it's a travesty. But I think it's not a surprise what space is available there. I wonder why there's 3 units being sold for profit when there's not enough space to have a fence in between properties.
I think we can correct that, Mr. Brown.
If on the question of affordability,
If I can interject, I think that's besides the point. That's not what we're here to discuss. That's not what's on the agenda. That's not what we're asking for public input on. And I think if we open the floodgates, we could be here all night. We've dealt with all of this over the last 2 years. We're here to discuss a matter on the agenda.
Correct. I'm just wanting to correct some misunderstandings.
with respect to the affordability question, or I've seen some concern raised, and I can't pretend to know all of the different variations, but there has been no change to the agreement with BC Housing since we were last in front of council. So the development proponent and the agreement with BC Housing, both with respect to the rental requirements and the affordable home ownership units, that agreement is fully in effect and has not changed.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Yeah, it's more a time frame I was referring to, but yeah, I don't really know where to go from here, but yeah, obviously things have to be done quickly. I think the setbacks need to be ensured that they are what they are, not just what they say they are. I think there's supposed to be another survey done on the property, and I'm not sure all that's been done, but this bylaw, modification again was done at a last minute, and it's pretty frustrating to see. I'm a little scared as to what's going to happen. Yeah, anyway, I just ask for a lot of vigilance in what's going on, not just another clean slate for the developer to do what he wants. And, there has to be holding his feet to the fire, not just more considerations and zoning changes and all that. So anyway, thanks for listening.
Thanks for your comments. Would any other members of the public affected by this DVP like to speak to us? Yes.
My name is Andrew Sadler. Currently live in Tofino, 1110 Fellowship Drive, but very excited to be moving to Yuki soon. Hopefully soon. So yeah, I think just worth saying that there's been a lot of vigilance and a lot of holding the developers' feet to the fire as it is. And we're very, very looking forward to moving into our new home, my wife and I. I was born and raised here, really looking forward to actually being able to have a long-term secure housing. And yeah, we're really excited to move in, and we really appreciate this being done as quickly as possible. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks for your comments. Would anyone else like to speak to us regarding this DVP? Yes.
I don't have much. Oh, sorry. It's another Lou that will be hopefully moving into First Light. I live in Ucluelet at the moment too. And I just wanted to show support. And I know that council and our mayor has showed a lot of support for First Light. I think it's our first affordable housing project. We're all really excited to move in, and we're all really excited for this project to move forward quickly so we can hopefully move in by the end of summer. And thank you. Thank you for your support.
Thanks for your comments. Would anyone else like to speak to us about this DVP?
Mayor McEwen, if I may, we do have someone online that would like to speak.
That was going to be my next question.
Iman, I'll now allow you to speak.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Or can you also see me? Let me see if I can have my video.
Oh, but you need to speak up, please.
Oh, for some reason I cannot have my video on.
That's okay.
Okay. Yep. All right. Give me a second. Yep. I am Iman Makarimi, and I live at 1796 Rainforest Lane, adjacent to the lot 13. And I really wish I could be in the room with the rest of you guys. Unfortunately, I'm on a trip and I could not make it. Anyhow, I would want to be very clear from the start. We all want this project finished. We really want to have real neighbors than an empty lot and a developer. Real neighbors are a lot better than trucks moving back and forth in that lot. And we want these families to finally be home. It remains shocking to us that the developer stood here last summer claiming houses were being finished while buyers at First Light have had to endure multiple timeline delays. However, I'm here to ask that this council stop granting concessions and start enforcing these existing bylaws that protect our neighborhood. The applicant is currently requesting a highly unusual 0-meter setback to the buffer line. This is essentially a request to legalize a violation that has already occurred. We have shared an independent ISA arborist report from July 2025, which confirms that the legally mandated 8-meter vegetated buffer behind proposed lots 29 and 30 has already been reduced to as little as 5.7 meters in multiple locations. This is not an isolated incident. All neighbors on our side of the property line have reported similar encroachments. This physical breach was verified in person on July 18, 2025 by the former Director of Planning. During that site visit, he acknowledged the unauthorized clearing and assured us that the formal district survey would be a mandatory next step to document the footprint before any subdivision approval. That was nearly a year ago. That survey has still not been completed. And this is based on a call that we made to the city, and one of the staff confirmed this. Yet here we are now discussing another wave of variances that would further compromise the boundary of this development. Additionally, the administrative oversight by the district in labeling the municipal land behind us as a road has caused significant confusion and wasted so much time for everyone involved. That onus is on the municipality to rectify this error. I'm asking the council to move a resolution tonight that requires 4 simple things prior to any permit approvals. 1, a formal district survey to officially document the unauthorized clearing footprint. 2, mandatory reforestation at the sole expense of ACMC Holdings as a strict condition of any variance. 3, formal park dedication for the 8-meter municipal strip to correct a previous labeling error. And 4, an engineered parking plan proving that 2.2-meter stalls that's mentioned in the application will actually work, ensuring parking does not spill over onto Marine Drive. I know that, Mayor, you praised that, and I appreciate that. None of these requests take more than a couple of business days to execute. They will not cause any legitimate delay to the project timeline. We have seen enough concessions. It's time for the district to enforce its own rules, hold the developer to the legal boundaries, and get these homes built. We want this project finished, and it is time it was done properly and with full accountability. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments. Is there anyone else on Zoom that would like to speak to us?
No, Mayor.
Okay. And one last time, anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this DVP? No? Any questions for staff from council? Okay, seeing none, there are two recommendations.
I have a quick question. Just sort of following up on some of the comments made by the last speaker there, and echoing comments that I've heard from other people. This would be a question to district staff. Has anyone confirmed via measurement that if these modifications are granted, the houses are actually going to fit? Like, can you guys confirm that this would be the last time we have to revisit a variance or an adjustment or an easement or any other concession?
Mr. Brown?
Yeah, great question. And one thing we've been very clear as staff is we wanted to make sure we were coming to council for one consideration of all the items. So, I'm always hesitant to give 100% definitive answer, but the goal here was to only come to council with the variances and the covenant amended as one package for your consideration. With that said, through the building permit process, surveys and confirmation are required for a whole host of reasons, but one of them being setbacks, spatial separation, and all those sorts of things. So there is, when it comes to the location of the units, they will be confirmed or are being confirmed through the building permit process as we speak. So we tried to review as many as possible to the greatest detail possible of these 33 lots and permits.
Okay, so and I'm not, trying to gotcha, but to the best of your knowledge and your professional opinion, on the record, it's your belief that this would be the final time that council is asked to reconsider any dimensional aspect of this proposal.
That is correct. With that said, any property owner can submit an application and it has to be heard by council, but we have worked with the proponent to really try and make sure there would be no additional variances or asks of council.
Okay, any other questions for staff before we move forward? Seeing none, I'll start us off. I will move that council authorize the Director of Planning and Strategic Initiatives to execute and issue Development Variance Permit DVP 26-01.
I'll second.
Councillor Hoare seconds. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
I was going to jump in there. I just want to, this sort of follows for all of for the second item as well. It's really disappointing to me to see where we are. I know that the proponent has come back numerous times. I know that we're in a position where I really do feel like we're being asked to make a decision on behalf of the community to give a variance for the benefit of certain people. And anytime that council has been asked to do that, the way that I've always approached it is to say, okay, well, who stands to benefit? Who stands to lose? And from what I've seen, a lot of the feedback that we've received against this particular request is valid, but it doesn't carry as much weight for me personally as the feedback that we've received in favor from people who want to move into a home, from people that in good faith have been waiting patiently. I think we could argue till the cows come home about whether the developer could have done a better job. I know that there's a lot of complexities to consider, and I think we have to be pragmatic. We have to be realistic. And I think that at this moment in time, we have to say, okay, what is more important to us? So, and in my mind, it's housing people rather than arguing about, 600 millimeters here or there, which is not to say that we should approach zoning variances as we'll figure it out later. Like, rules are there for a reason. It's not an ideal situation, but we have to make the best of it.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, that carries. I will also move that council approve a modification to 219 Covenant CB 2621379 to allow roof eaves to project up to 600 millimeters into the green space buffer area and to Authorize the mayor and corporate officer to execute that modification on the following properties. Lot 20, District Lot 283, Clayoquot District, Plan EPP 147430, Lot 22, Lot 23, Lot 24, Lot 25.
Second.
Councillor Hoare seconds. Further discussion?
One very minor point. I'm assuming that the typo in our agenda where it says 600 meters is not going to make it into any final permitting, because that would be a pretty massive projection.
Where does it say that?
I'm looking on the PDF and it is.
Not on the motion.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
Exactly. Just wanted to be clear because it might pop up.
No, I think the resolution will be pretty clear. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed. That carries. Thank you. If anyone was here for the hard sports facility or this topic and would like to leave, you are welcome to. You don't have to stay for the whole meeting. Just saying. All right, the next report is titled District of Ucluelet Zoning Amendment Bylaw Number 1406, 2026, 1100 Shore Pine Drive, and it will also be presented by Tyler Brown, Director of Planning and Strategic Initiatives. Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. The report before you summarizes zoning amendment bylaw number 1406, 2026, which is an application that proposes rezoning 1100 Shore Pine Drive, or Lot 90, to allow for a multifamily residential development. The report before you is to seek council direction to notify for first reading, which is that notification of first reading is the result of the provincial changes with respect to where a bylaw is for majority residential or up to 50% or more than 50% residential and is consistent with the OCP designation. There is no public hearing required. However, the legislation does require that the public is notified of first reading of the bylaw. So in that sense, the proposal is entirely residential and consistent with the multifamily OCP land use designation. If staff are directed to give notice of first reading of the amendment bylaw, we'll provide that statutory notice and bring the bylaw back to council for first and subsequent readings at a soon-to-be council meeting. This application was referred to Ucluelet First Nation, and any response, of course, will be forwarded to council prior to potential first reading of the bylaw. The proposal or the applicant has proved out at a high level a 31-unit, 5-level multifamily residential building featuring underground parking and also surface-level parking for the potential top units if this development was to proceed. The property context is it's a highly sloped lot, which is driving a lot of the design decisions in the development proponent's concept. And it's a 1.7 acre forested lot. The proposed change is from the CD 5C zone, which is quite a large zone that deals with a lot of the original Weyerhaeuser lands, to an R3 higher density residential. As I noted, the land use designation in the OCP for this particular parcel is multifamily, and that designation was put in place in 2021, 2022 when the OCP was adopted. With respect to affordable housing, the master development agreement over those lands, which is registered on title, does require 20% of the units over the entirety of the lands to be affordable. Currently, the landowner has development credits through the creation of the Lot 13 lots. So with respect to this one, the applicant there is not proposing any affordable units. However, they would be accessing the credits that they currently have with the district with respect to the Lot 13 or First Light development. A high-level engineering review has been completed, and there is the potential that there may be water pressure issues with respect to the upper floors and fire suppression. However, that detailed flow tests and demand calculations would be required with any building permit, and there is, of course, engineering solutions or off-site works that could be required to meet the required fire flow, under building code. The site does include, which was done through the original subdivision, does include protected green space buffers on all sides. And just for a little bit of history for council's perspective, a development permit was issued for some of the lands and was considered by council on March 26, 2019, where this lot was shown as a multifamily unit. That was actually prior to the adoption of the recent OCP. Then in 2021, 2022, when the district was redoing their OCP, it was contemplated and ultimately adopted as having the multifamily designation within the OCP. And then the May 14th application submission for the rezoning of what ultimately resulted in the subdivision did identify as they would be coming forward with a multifamily proposal on this site, but they would be doing so with the subsequent zoning amendment application, which this one is. Happy to answer any questions, but if council does grant the recommendation in the package tonight, we'll of course come back to you with the actual bylaws, and at that point have notified the public of first reading.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. And this is not subject to a public hearing because the OCP is condoning the use.
Correct. It is primarily residential. In this case, it's all residential, and it's consistent with the OCP land use designation of multifamily.
Great, thank you. Questions for staff? Councillor Noel?
Yeah, no, I was around for those years, and I guess when I look at this, I know some of the property owners that are up at Shore Pine. I think they all bless you. They all kind of purchased with thought this was a residential area. Lot 90, I guess, when I look at it, when I look at the beautiful map down on what's for sale, I would have made the assumption that would have been an entry off of Marine Drive, just because that's the main thoroughway. We need housing, but I think it just takes the fun out for the probably 5 or 6 people I've spoken with in the last 4 or 5 days since I've read the agenda. It changes the dynamics of that road. Most of those people understand they're gonna live in a construction zone, but this changes a little bit, and I think for some people that maybe have made an acquisition there, probably would have liked to have known this a little bit early on. It's fine that it's a multifamily, but the entrance is questioning for me and concerning. Outside of that, that's my only comment.
Is there a question in there for Mr. Brown?
Well, there's really nothing. It's the public's not really going to have a say here. So this is from what there's going to be no public hearing. People are just basically those living on Shore Pine are just along for the ride. So just more or less comments. And the question is, there will be no public hearing. If it meets the OCP, which it does, it doesn't say that it has to be off of Marine Drive. There's a potential that this unit, as beautiful as it is, will be maximizing the height of that piece of property to ensure every unit has a beautiful view of the ocean, as opposed to being sub-level with Marine Drive, is my comment. They're all comments. For that's factual. We've known that there's a hotel property across the street from Lot 90 that's been there. Delta Hotel was looking at that many years ago, and others. So that's it. I think it's just for those property owners that have bought into a new subdivision. This is a strike. It's frightening for a lot of them, because a multifamily for a lot of people probably thought maybe it was going to be a 6-plex, not 31 units, and gravel trucks for 4 or 5 years while they're doing the development, which they have right. I'm here to support Weyerhaeuser. I think they have a lot of land in town. they were dragged behind the bus for this whole development. And, but there has to be a little bit of a voice for some of the people that have bought property on there, not understanding that, this residential neighborhood is now changed. I compare it to the development, what is that, lot 13, 16?
Lot 16.
16, you know, I compare it to the entrance to lot 16, going off of Victoria Road. Again, you know, trying to, you know, as our town develops, really trying to ensure that the entry points to some of these bigger lots, which we need, I'm not disputing that they're really looked at using, especially Marine Drive and some of these main arteries. So again, you know, this is going to move along. This is going to be approved. This will be for sale. This meets the needs of the OCP. It's just really the entry point for me. It just really, it's unfortunate that, that's happening.
So if I may pose a question from those comments, this is a high piece of property. The topography is quite high, correct? The highest probably of that whole property?
That is correct.
Which is why the entrance can't come off Marine Drive. It's coming through Shorepine Drive.
As proposed through the concept planning by the development proponent, it does come off of Shorepine Drive. So at the top, their proposal aims to sort of cascade with the hill. So it would be from the top. In terms of the plans they've submitted, it would be 2 stories at the top where they would utilize that for more it would almost look like townhomes, but then the parking, there would be a parking drive access that would go down to a parkade that would serve some of the condo units.
So is there an opportunity to speak to the proponent about changing the access to Marine Drive, or is that physically impossible?
All their work to date has shown that access off Shorepine Drive. If that is an interest of council, we can of course have that information for council when they consider first reading. And if that doesn't, if council still has concerns at that point, you could, you know, consider the application in that light, but we could get that information from the proponent and those considerations they may have had to you for that first reading report.
So I don't think it would need to hold up first reading necessarily, but it would be interesting to see if there was an opportunity to pursue that, if that may help some of those people that have bought properties in that Shorepine Drive area. Mr. Harding, is that possible? We can give first reading, but ask the proponent for his opinion?
Absolutely. I'll ask Mr. Brown to comment, but I mean, this is still a rezoning process. Council still has this, you know, the abilities to ask and request certain aspects of a design and fit. It's just, we're just highlighting the fact that this is in your OCP and has been addressed to this type of use. You still have a lot of input into the actual process. Mr. Brown, am I correct?
Yeah, I would say knowing the proponent's design team, they're you know, pretty highly skilled. They've probably considered a variety of factors. If council does grant this tonight, I don't think I would need council direction to simply go and say, hey, you know, there was some questions around this, and this is only to give notice of first reading. So between now and when we'd bring forward the actual bylaws, would be lots of opportunity for me to connect with the applicant and get their further refinement on their design rationale, in particular how it relates to the access.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. And so giving notice of first reading, would this trigger the communication to the neighborhood, or would that wait until the actual first reading?
Correct. That would happen. It would happen prior to first reading, so people are aware of the exact meeting date council's considering first reading.
Great.
So hearing council's comments tonight and wanting more information, we would time everything to make sure that it's aligned. We have the information or a response from the proponent. We've properly notified of the meeting, or we've properly notified the community of the meeting that council is going to consider first reading, and we'd have that all for you on one single agenda.
Great, thank you. Councilor Banerjee?
Quick question here. Just point of clarity. So the application has been received from DHK Architects on behalf of Weyerhaeuser Company. So is it correct to assume that at this point, the owner of the property, Weyerhaeuser, is not looking to do any of this build themselves? They're just looking for a rezoning, at which point the lot would sell like any of the other lots in that development except rezoned, and it would sell to a buyer that would have interest in taking advantage of that zoning. Is that a correct interpretation?
I couldn't speak to that definitively, but that is the approach that has happened on the other parcels.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Councillor Hoare?
I would be curious to see if they can do something about that, that input. It's one of the things that's not referred to in our OCP, but when you have a development of this size, and I was surprised at the size of it, given the lot. But when you have that many places and you have the access coming off this small cul-de-sac, it just seems wrong to me, like that there should be something about trying to create a access off a main road like Marine Drive, and I would like to know whether that can be done.
I think Mr. Brown has his marching orders.
100%.
Any other questions for staff? No, there is one recommendation if anyone would like to move it.
I'll move that council direct staff to give notice of first reading to the District of Ukulin zoning amendment bylaw number 1406, 2026.
Thank you, Councillor Noel. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second.
Councillor Hoare seconds. Any further discussion? Councillor Mafty.
I'm just going to jump in here. I realize it's just first reading. I have a track record of kind of telegraphing my opinions, and I'm not gonna break it now. I've got no issue at all with a property owner looking for a redevelopment. I completely understand the logic here, but I think that what this really translates into is an opportunity for the current owner of the property to maximize their profit. I'm fine with that, but what they're proposing, I don't really think makes sense for Ucluelet to see a 31 unit, market housing complex there. My attitude would be build out the development, and then if someone wants to buy it and approach council, the next council or the next council after that, let them do so. But this is sort of like, let's just try to cash in right now. I don't necessarily think that Ucluelet needs this type of growth. So rather than saying that I'm against a development that hasn't even been proposed, I'm against the rezoning because I don't think that it logically follows that the community stands to benefit from us approving this right now. I understand how the property owner would benefit, but I don't think it's in the benefit of the community. It doesn't affect the property owner if we vote it down. At this point, if the motion's on the table, it's going to go to second reading anyway. I just want to kind of go on the record with my concerns and my skepticism that I would come around to approving this. I don't see that the community stands to benefit from this rezoning at this particular moment in time.
Thank you, Councillor Mafty. I think this has been sort of on the books since 2019. Is that correct, Mr. Brown?
Yes, Mayor, it did. That was when there was the DP. It could be before that. That was just the records I pull. And I just want to be very clear. Council isn't considering first reading tonight. They're only considering notice of first reading, which is that kind of weird step that we're all trying to customize ourselves to based on the provincial legislation. So first reading of the bylaw would come at a future date.
I misspoke. I understood that. If I can just kind of jump in just to your point about this being on the book since 2019, I completely understand that. And I think that as a community, we really need to think ahead, plan ahead. But if you plan too far ahead and you ignore what's happened in the meantime, you end up with situations where we have zoning for a 20,000 square foot pub on Big Beach. Like these are the sort of unintended, accidental outcomes of thinking too far ahead, and then what actually happens in reality just doesn't align. And so I think that this is the moment that we have to say, do we need a 31 unit market housing complex here? Is the Ucluelet of 5 years in the future going to need that? I don't know. So let's just consider it. And if I consider it, I'm not sure that that's what we need. So the fact that it's been around for as long as it has only says that that's what might have made sense then in 2017, 2018, 2019. I don't know that it necessarily makes sense now. The community's changed quite a bit in the last 7 years.
Any further discussion? There is one recommendation. I don't think we've made it yet, have we?
Yeah, we have.
Oh, we have? Okay, so any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, that carries. All right. Yeah, sure. We'll take a 5-minute break. Call this meeting back to order at 5:26. The last report is titled Online Community Engagement Platform, Yuki Listens, and it will be presented by Samantha McCullough, Manager of Human Resources and Communications, and Brendan Petrusek, Community Engagement and Communications Coordinator.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. We are delighted to be here today speaking to you about our new online engagement platform, Yuki Listens. Strengthening community engagement in a way that is responsive, transparent, and inclusive has been a key strategic priority for Council. It is encouraging to see that work taking shape in a meaningful way. We began with the website redevelopment and redesign project, which concluded last year and was aimed at modernizing the district's official website with a focus on improving usability, accessibility, and information architecture. The updated platform has significantly enhanced navigation, enabling residents and stakeholders to locate key information more efficiently and with greater clarity and functionality. Today, we're pleased to introduce Yuki Listens, a new digital engagement platform launched by the District of Ucluelet. This has been a long-standing initiative and represents an important step forward in modernizing how we connect with our community. Yuki Listens is designed to expand participation by making it easier and more accessible for residents to share their perspectives, engage in discussions, and contribute to local decision-making. At the same time, it complements rather than replaces our existing engagement methods, ensuring a balanced and inclusive approach. The platform will also provide valuable insight to Council. Feedback collected through surveys, questions, and participation data will be compiled by staff and brought forward to help inform Council's decision-making process. With that, I'm pleased to introduce Brendan Petrusek, our Communications and Community Engagement Coordinator. Brendan has been closely involved with the Yuki Listens platform throughout its development and implementation and brings valuable insight into its evolution. Brendan will support the platform's day-to-day administration moving forward and will now provide Council with a more detailed overview of the platform.
Thanks so much, Samantha, and good evening, Mayor and Council. My presentation tonight will help illustrate what our new engagement platform looks like and give you an idea of what to expect as we move forward with launching it for the public. So what you see now on your screen is kind of the opening frame that can be seen, and today I'll go through a few more of the frames that the public will see. So as Ms. McCullough said, this new platform is part of our efforts to expand and modernize public participation. It is not replacing other in-person engagement methods, but adds an additional avenue in the process to help strengthen engagement and transparency overall. Many of our neighboring districts, including Tofino, Port Alberni, and the ACRD, already utilize this same style of web page with great success. And it is important to reiterate that the platform does not replace our existing website. One key difference is that users of Yuki Listens will be required to register before engaging on the platform. So people are welcome to view all the content that Yuki Listens provides, but without registration cannot use the tools provided on the webpage, such as surveys, polls, questionnaires, etc. And the platform is moderated by the webpage service provider and includes a detailed privacy and etiquette policy available for all users to view before sign up. And you're just seeing another kind of version of a slide that we're going to go through in future ones here. So this matrix that we have on the screen gives us an idea of what community members can expect and how the two different web pages differ. So how Yuki Listens is different from the District of Ucluelet website. So importantly, Yuki Listens is an engagement platform, and the District of Ucluelet website is an information center. So what does that mean? The two sites overlap, but with important difference. The district website displays important public notices and is where a community can go for service requests. Yuki Listens is where communities should go if they want to comment and engage with an ongoing project. So for example, you may be interested in the skate park expansion or our zoning bylaw refresh and have seen information on the website about those projects. If you want to voice a question, concern, or comment, you can log into Yuki Listens and immediately voice any or all inquiries. Furthermore, helpful tools such as surveys, polls, and timelines are available. The Director of Community Services report earlier tonight incorporated feedback we received from the Multipurpose Sports Facility Open House on March 25th. Yuki Listens can help enhance those types of reports that Council will see and capture opinions and feedback from folks who could not make an in-person engagement event or want to share their opinion after they have come to an event. So I'm just going to run through a few of the page examples from our preliminary design, and bear with me, you'll see they're quite zoomed out, and I'm just about to zoom in on the presentation here. All the way in. And I'll go right up to the tippy top and scroll down. Sorry. I had to screen grab the web page. So I want to quickly go through how the web page will look and the makeup of the site. And so we have three main categories on our front page that you can see here. It's featured projects, current projects, and closed projects. So featured projects such as the zoning bylaw refresh and the multipurpose sports facility that we have are ones that we are actively seeking input on. And so these are projects that are still, like we was passed today, the design phase will be going ahead with the multi-purpose sports facility, so we can share possible designs there that we can elicit public feedback from. Current projects are one that are closed for engagement, but are ongoing. For example, our skate park expansion, which had robust consultation with community members and went through all of the processes and is going along quite well. That's an example of a closed project, but isn't fully completed. And that's another way that people can click and see the timelines and what's been going on. And then finally, our closed projects, which also include a frequently asked questions page and also a what is Yuki Listens page, so people can pop on that and kind of see what they're getting themselves into, and includes our Village Green Revitalization Project. So it's in the title, it's closed and completed. And then there's a little section there of talk to our team, which is myself, and Tyler graciously allowed his likeness to be put on there as well. This is an example, it's not showing super well here, of our zoning bylaw refresh page. And just from what people can see. So I think what's important to mention is these kind of side widgets here. You can have a timeline that people can see the iteration of our zoning bylaw refresh, what's been done to date, important existing documents, important links. And then at the bottom here, we have different tools for engagement. So for example, a new survey is going to be coming out shortly as we get into our a new open house next week. And other questions that people might ask, you can use different tools on this webpage that people can directly engage with a project if they'd like. And then here's an example of a completed page. The Village Green Revitalization, our beautiful kind of downtown jewel with our playground that we get to see from our district office every day. So if folks want to see about a project that's already been done, for example, this one, they can go to this, see all the work that went into it, and it'll have a big complete stamp on the top. And this, again, you can't see super well because of the coloring, but our frequently asked question page. And one of the great things about this is people can just go right to the bottom, and if they have a question, they can type it right in, staff will be alerted, and we can add it if we see it enough come up. And so what are our next steps? We want to make sure that the rollout is smooth and community members know when the platform goes live. We already have a drafted Yuki mail and social media campaign ready and are hoping to give this option for folks at future open houses. We are very open to changing how people engage and tweaking the site as recommendations come in. And so in conclusion, Yuki Listens really just adds another layer to engagement for the district as we continue to grow and take on more exciting projects within our community. Our in-person, face-to-face conversations are not going anywhere. And we just hope that this new platform will simply complement that ongoing work. And with that being said, we look forward to seeing folks at our second zoning bylaw refresh open house next Tuesday, right here in the UCC. And this is the type of platform that can help us engage more fully in that project and other ones. So thank you so much, Mayor and Council, and we can take any questions you may have.
Thank you so much, Brendan. This is way better than I even expected it to be. So that's pretty awesome. Any questions for staff? Councillor Noel?
Yeah, Brendan, yeah, welcome. I know you've been here. Have you got your 90 days yet?
It was luckily only 60 days. So yeah. Mhm.
No, your presentation was wonderful. Thank you. You did a wonderful job. And yeah, I look forward. Have you done something like this before?
This type of website project?
Yeah.
I worked a lot in my previous role with updating our website and other engagement. It was with the federal government, so it's not as robust. So it's been fantastic to work under Sam's leadership to be able to have a bit more latitude to work on something like this. The Fed is a little more rigid, but here we have a lot of fantastic leadership that lets us kind of take
No, you're eating
more
and breathing, and I appreciate
direction.
it. The success is all dependent upon who's taking it. So Sam, you got a good wingman there, and you're perfect. I think it's wonderful. Yeah, communication's always a big struggle for even a small town, right? So yeah, I think it's wonderful, and like the mayor said, it's a lot better than I expected, and I think all of us. So keep it going. Thank you. Nice to be surprised.
In a good way.
Yes.
Yeah, communication with the public has been kind of one of our strategic priorities. And so this has accomplished or is going to accomplish a good portion of that. So thank you so much for your work on this. It's awesome. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Mafty?
Just a comment to express my appreciation. I remember when I was first thinking of running for council, that was one of the things that I thought, man, there's so much opportunity for council and for district staff to communicate with the public. And then I came on to council and I was like, oh, it's not as easy as it seems. But I really appreciate the work that went into this. And I think this is huge. And I think it's going to give people a functional way to engage. I've heard from a lot of people who are like, I can't come to meetings. It's hard to do this. It's hard to do that. And the easier we make it, the easier it is for people to comment, the easier it is for council and staff to do their job. So this is fantastic. Thank you. Really.
And so just a couple of sort of technical questions. It's somehow this is going to alert you that there is a comment or a question.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of on the back end of the website, we have a whole dashboard that we're able to see. It also sends us direct emails, like when someone has commented, it comes right into a specific inbox into our Outlook, so that if it's urgent, for example, we can make sure we see it right away. Or, for example, when we had our zoning bylaw refresh or the multi-sports refresh, and we had all those sticky notes, it can have a similar effect of that. If someone makes a comment, we can log it and make sure that it gets before mayor and council so that they can make informed decisions with community input.
So are you anticipating a section on every council meeting package that will address what you've seen and heard?
I think it'll be context-based. So, for example, I'll use the report that Abby or the Miss Fortune gave today. I think this website will allow reports like that to be enhanced in terms of the information that they're able to put in their reports. And we certainly, if directed, can look at maybe annual or other annual reports of how it's going, and in that sense. But I think the purpose of this is to help already enhance the ongoing engagement that we have.
Great, thank you. Any other comments, questions, feedback? Nope. Okay. Oh,
Council, I just want to just say this is actually a direct response of council's direction to staff, though, specifically since I arrived and Ms. McCullough and I had our first discussions about the council's desire for improved customer service and ways to communicate to the public. And so this is directly from council's direction, as well as our refocusing staff position for communications. So again, this is achieving hopefully your strategic direction and definitely your council's direction.
Thank you, Mr. Harding. There's one recommendation.
I'd be happy to recommend that the report titled Online Community Engagement Platform, Yuki Listens, dated April 28th, 2026, be received for information.
I'll second.
So not only recommend, but move.
I will move the preceding recommendation.
And Councillor Hoare seconds. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, that carries. Thank you. All right, we're moving on to bylaws. We have 3 bylaws on the agenda today. The first one is titled District of Ucluelet 2026 Annual Tax Rates Bylaw number 1408, 2026 adoption, and it will be presented by Jeffrey Cadman, Director of Finance.
Thank you, Mayor. It's a pleasure to be up here one last time. Short report for you. Basically, council has given the first 3 readings to the property tax bylaw and is now in a position to adopt. If there's any questions, I'll happily answer them.
Any questions for staff? Councillor Noel?
No, it's just a follow up from last time. You heard my 10,
Uh-oh.
it was a 10-minute lecture. No, it's no just mill rates, right? There's, it speaks right there how much more they're paying. It's a struggle, and I can only hope that the next year mill rates will look a little bit different. And how do we start to approach this? And when you and it's always, I didn't want to dig in too much to your previous presentations, but sometimes we focus so much on residential mill rates that there isn't a focus really on the commercial. So I'll end it at that, because I went over my time limit last time. And thank you. You've done a great job, and I wish you nothing but success in your next endeavor there, Jeff.
Any other questions or comments for Mr. Cadman? Seeing none, there's one recommendation.
I'll move that council adopt the District of Ucluelet 2026 Annual Tax Rates Bylaw number 1408, 2026.
Do I have a seconder?
I'll second.
Councillor Mafty seconds. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed?
Sorry. I am in favor.
Okay. I'll do that again. All in favor? None opposed, that carries. Thank you.
Mayor, if I could.
Yes, Ms.
I was just to Councillor Noel's comments that so we've heard council, and particularly on the mill rates, and it will be, as far as we come forward with the new council will probably see the full budgeting process, but in that definitely including some of the discussion on those mill rates. But I would also say that was Mr. Cadman's last presentation. He is, for those I'm sure council is aware, this is his last week with us, and he is off to the metropolis of Powell River. As of next week, you start March 4th, May 4th, May 4th, May 4th. So we thank you for all his work on that, and all the best.
Yes, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure working with you. The second bylaw is titled Bylaw Notice Enforcement Adjudication Program and Associated Bylaws. First, second, and third readings, and it will be presented by Ed Chow, Director of Corporate Services.
Thank you, through Mayor to Council. I will do a quick overview, then pass on to our consultant, Ms. Robinson. We'll go through the detail. So in this February, we received the cabinet order from the province formally approve the District of Ucluelet to join the adjudication system. In March, City of Nanaimo formally accept us to join the adjudication registration system. And we talked to our current bylaw officer, so she gave us a list of frequently used bylaw, particularly associated with all the fines. And we have our consultant, Ms. Robinson, to comb through those bylaws. But because the idea at this stage is get the necessary wording, make us comply with the new adjudication system. At the later stage, when we are start to issue tickets and the adjudication system, we will be able to review each individual bylaws. If we wanted to change the provisions, adjust fine amounts, we'll do at that time. With that, I will pass on to Mr. Robinson.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just gonna hopefully hit share my screen here, and is that sharing here?
It's just started, yes.
Okay, so is my PowerPoint showing here?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm excited to be here to present on the bylaw notice enforcement adjudication program.
Miss Robertson, if I may, I'm sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt.
Yeah.
That's,
One moment, Karen.
I think that's
Yeah.
the
Your
agenda.
PowerPoint's not on there quite
Okay,
yet.
let's pick a different page then.
There you go.
Is that the one?
Not
Is
yet.
it- Not yet?
If you stop sharing your screen, perhaps, or yeah, and then
Great.
start over.
Well,
Okay.
while she's pausing to get that going, I'd like to introduce a little bit more about Miss Robinson's background. Miss Robinson
There
used
you
to be a Ucluelet, District of Ucluelet employee in lead services many years ago. And she's been all over the province doing lead service work, and has been willing to do some work for us. So quite nice. You've come full circle, Miss Robinson.
I know. I was just thinking about my fond memories of the time of working back in the 90s. And I really miss the foghorn. Great for sleeping. Anyways, as I was saying, I'm really excited to be here, and I really do thank Mr. Harding and Mr. Chow for allowing me to work on this project, and to Ms. Pelchat for all of her assistance this past few weeks. I think Council will be pleased with the decision to join the 11 other local governments who participate in the Nanaimo Joint Dispute Adjudication Registry. It's a bit of a mouthful. It's also known as the DARS, is the acronym. It's a very cost-effective and efficient way to adjudicate bylaw offenses, and I was part of the implementation team in 2014 when Tofino, Duncan, Parksville, and the city of Nanaimo decided to join the first registry on the island. And the program has been very successful ever since, and it's resulted since then with 7 more local governments joining since that time. I'm just going to hit my next slide here. So before I get into a bit more detail about the program, I thought it was worth mentioning that fundamentally the role of bylaw enforcement is to educate and inform residents of the district's bylaws. It exists to promote and facilitate the bylaws enacted by council, and the goal is not to penalize residents, but rather to achieve voluntary compliance wherever possible. And your bylaw enforcement officer is tasked with investigating complaints about alleged violations and provides enforcement in a fair and consistent manner. Bylaw enforcement officers work with those willing to correct violations, but compliance or enforcement based on education and warnings is not always appropriate in all circumstances. And there are times when more direct enforcement, including immediate ticketing, may need to occur.
If I can just interrupt, the slide did not advance.
So, Ms. Robinson, maybe we'll ask Ms. Pelchat to actually do the slides, and you can just say next slide.
She doesn't have a copy of this presentation. Are you not seeing the Offense Act prosecution slide on the
No,
No, it hasn't advanced.
So if you go off, turn it off again and come back on
Okay.
with the run.
Okay. So let us try this again here. Share. And I'm going to select. We'll try this screen here. Let's see if that works.
And then if you do slideshow and then from beginning.
Okay. I was telling Flo, I said, darn it with these things. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen to me. We even did a run through yesterday. Okay, let's just see here. Okay, from beginning.
Correct.
So is the Offense Act prosecution slide up now?
Yes, it is.
Okay, we'll see if we can get this going yet. Okay, now okay. So when compliance can't be achieved and it becomes necessary to issue a fine, there are 3 systems available to local governments for issuing tickets. There's the bylaw notice system for minor infractions where fines can be issued up to $500. There's the municipal ticketing system for fines up to $3,000. And then there's the Offense Act, which is reserved for more serious infractions. And that can go up to $50,000. And a comparison chart of those 3 systems is attached to staff's report as Appendix T.
However, it's worth just spending a few minutes going over each system, what the key differences are. So prior to 2004, the Offence Act was the only tool available to local governments where offence tickets were issued and they were processed through the provincial court system. The process is more formal, it's slower, it's resource heavy, and in the past there was low compliance as municipalities had to spend more on enforcement and legal resources. In 2004, amendments were made to modernize the Act and strengthen the enforcement tools. And then this is when the Municipal Ticket Information System and the Bylaw Notice frameworks were introduced through the Bylaw Notice Enforcement Act. So we're going to get to the next one here. Okay. So the MTI system is a more simplified method to enforce minor to medium contravention and allows local governments to issue tickets without going through the full court system. And the MTI system made it possible to streamline enforcement of local bylaws like parking and animal control and noise complaints, etc. And it reduced court time by handling minor offenses more efficiently, and it gave municipalities a little bit more autonomy in enforcement. The MTI system was easy to use. That is, it was a plug and play with the established adjudication system. And Ucluelet jumped on board as soon as this came into effect in 2004 and adopted MTI bylaw 949. So the fines within that bylaw vary between $50 and up through to $1,000, with the majority of them falling under $500. And while this system was meant to reduce time in court, there's still some drawbacks to it. So for example, if an individual chooses to dispute a ticket, it still needs to be adjudicated through the provincial court system where matters are considered by a judge. The burden of proof is beyond a reasonable doubt, so there are actually criminal standards that you have to follow. And when considering the ticket, the judge can turn around and has the option to lessen the fine that's been issued by the municipality. Decisions can also be appealed through to the Supreme Court, which contributes to further staff time, making it extremely costly for municipalities to proceed.
Miss Robertson, if I may, would you mind just sending me a copy of that updated PowerPoint, and then I'll just put it up because for some reason the slides aren't
The slides are not
showing
advancing,
properly.
eh? Oh, they're advancing on my end. That's how about if I'm let's try one more trick here. How about now? Do you see bylaw notice?
Yes.
Okay, I think rather than the screen in front of me, I'll do it on the one on the right, and it should work. If not, I'll send it to you.
Okay. And then maybe just hit slideshow and from current slide, and then that'll make it big because for us it's kind of small.
Okay. Is that working now?
If you do slideshow and then from
did.
current slide. Oh, on the other screen, maybe? I don't know.
Slide. Okay. Would you like me to do, Ms. Pelchat, do you want me to just keep going even though it's can you see the bylaw notice slide? Is it
This is fine.
Okay, this is
it
fine. Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Sorry.
About that, I apologize. So the third option available for enforcing minor infractions is the bylaw notice system. And the advantages to this system are that it can resolve ticket disputes in a timely manner. It simplifies and expedites the dispute process by removing straightforward bylaw violations from the provincial court system. It reduces costs for all parties associated with going to court, hiring legal counsel, and the time spent for your bylaw enforcement officers waiting to testify. It also allows for dispute resolution through an independent provincially appointed adjudicator. And so even though this system is more efficient than the MTI system and was available at the same time as the MTI system, local governments didn't choose the option right away because it requires full local setup. Unlike the existing provincial court system, the bylaw notice requires local governments to build their own adjudication process. And this meant creating adjudication bylaws, hiring adjudicators, and setting up administrative processes and hearing procedures. And this was a lot of groundwork, and especially for smaller communities like Ucluelet. There are also real startup costs, such as staff training, developing administrative systems, and ongoing costs to run the hearings. So most weren't sure if the savings from avoiding court were going to outweigh the costs. So many took a wait and see approach, watching to see what early adopters were going to do. And so to help pave the way, the Ministry of Attorney General launched a pilot project in 2004 to test the new bylaw notice system. They worked with the City of West Vancouver, City of North Vancouver, and the District of North Vancouver, where these three local governments shared an adjudication registry to handle the disputes for all three municipalities combined. Disputes were reviewed by staff who were appointed as screening officers, and they have the ability to cancel or resolve tickets without a formal hearing. And for those that did proceed to a hearing, they were conducted by the appointed adjudicators that had the specific training, and the courts were not involved. And this collaborative approach solved many early barriers, such as the opportunity to cost share, to provide sufficient volume, as combining the cases ensured that there were the disputes to justify a dedicated system. And it also provided consistency, as decisions and processes from those hearings were standardized across the North Shore. So in short, it allowed the province to test whether the system would actually work in practice. The results of the pilot project were extremely positive, and it demonstrated that disputes could be resolved faster and more efficiently than court. The North Shore Project pilot became the model for how bylaw adjudication works across BC today. And since then, dozens of local governments have implemented similar joint systems, as it showed that local governments could effectively pool their resources, avoid court, and run a fair quasi-judicial system at the local level. So how does the system work? A bylaw notice, often referred to as a bond, is essentially a ticket for a contravention against a local government. Bonds can be served in three ways: either by delivering the ticket directly to the person, by regular mail, which is very helpful, especially if you have a non-resident property owner that you need to issue a ticket, perhaps maybe for an unsightly premise. And then there's, in the case of a parking infraction, on the vehicle itself. Bylaw notices can only be issued in respect of the bylaw cited in the parent bylaw notice enforcement establishment bylaw, which is in your package as Appendix R. And an individual who receives a ticket has the opportunity to receive a 25% discount if paid within 14 days. If they wish to dispute it, the back of the bylaw notice contains a section entitled Notice of Dispute and Request for Adjudication. And the person fills out that section and submits it directly to the office in person or by mail within 14 days for the date that the ticket was issued. If one misses that deadline, they cannot dispute the ticket. And so from there, a screening officer will review the bylaw notice with the individual, answer any questions they have, and kind of guide them through the process, and also to outline their options. Screening officers are staff appointed by the CAO, who has the power, and those screening officers have the power to review disputed bylaw notices, including being able to cancel them. Typically, they are the supervisor or manager who oversees bylaw enforcement, but it can also be other staff, as long as it's not the bylaw enforcement officer to keep things separate. And often more than one staff member is appointed. The screening officer reviews all disputes and all the circumstances. And if the contravention did not occur as alleged, or if the evidence package is not sufficient enough, the screening officer may cancel the ticket. In cases where the ticket is affirmed by the screening officer, the individual will be required to pay the ticket. And if the individual wishes to proceed to adjudication, they would pay a $25 adjudication admin fee, which is returned or forfeited depending on whether they are successful or not in the adjudication. So during the hearing, the adjudicator will determine the matter based on the alleged bylaw contravention and the evidence of the parties. And evidence can be presented orally, it can be presented in writing, or electronically. And the person may choose to submit their dispute in person or through an authorized agent, over the phone, or in writing. Disputing the ticket also does not stop the clock. So if the individual loses the adjudication, they are responsible for paying the fine and the late payment penalty of 25%. So if this ticket still remains unpaid, the debt will be sent to a collection agency, or in the case of larger fines, the district does have the option to file a certificate with the provincial courthouse to seek a payment hearing. The cost to participate for the municipality to join DARS is based on population size, and for Ucluelet, that's $200 annually. Other fees are specific to the bylaw notices going to the hearing, and they're outlined in the agreement, which is attached to bylaw 2019, and they include a $25 admin fee for each bylaw notice that goes to a hearing. And this is just to assist in covering off the administrative costs for arranging the hearings. There is a $25 security fee for each bylaw notice, and that covers the costs for security at the meetings, and a $15 per bylaw notice to cover off the room rentals and hospitality. There's refreshments offered to individuals attending the hearing and covering the adjudicators' refreshments. In terms of the adjudicators' fees, they're apportioned amongst those local governments that have scheduled hearings. So for example, if there is a hearing where there's 25 cases heard in a day, and Ucluelet would have 5 of those, the district would be responsible for 20% of the adjudicator's fee, which in this example would be $125. And to ensure that there's enough cases to warrant an adjudicator for the day, hearing dates are booked when the docket is full. And now that we would be having 12 participating local governments under one registry, hearings can be booked in a timely manner, and they typically occur every 8 weeks. Costs for the disputant, as mentioned earlier, there are incentives provided for people to pay their penalties on time. If a ticket's paid within 14 days of receiving it, the individual receives that 25% reduction. Between 14 and 28 days, they're responsible for the fine as issued on the ticket. And after 28 days, the individual is responsible for the fine plus the 25% late penalty. The adjudication cost, as mentioned earlier, requires a $25 admin fee. And if they're successful, that $25 fee simply gets refunded and the bylaw notice is canceled. But if they are unsuccessful, they forfeit that 25 and they still end up having to pay the fine plus the 25% penalty. So just a little bit about the difference between the MTI and the bond system. The most recent participating local government to join the program was the Cowichan Valley Regional District, and they've been on the program for about 1.5 years. So they were a great resource to talk to about the comparison between the two systems. And so their manager of bylaw enforcement shared that they used the MTI system in 2024, and in 2025, they were solely on the bond system. And he indicated they issued approximately the same number of tickets. However, the big difference was in compliance. So under the MTI system, they only recouped $3,500 in fines from the tickets issued. So the compliance is very low. In 2025, they collected $18,000 specific to the bonds that were issued. And so their compliance rate is about 70%. Nanaimo's, I checked on our statistics, and for 2025, we were also around 72% compliance. Dispute hearings through the MTI system have a low rate of success, and that's for the local government. And that's really because the burden of proof is by criminal standards. It's beyond a reasonable doubt. And the dispute hearings for the bylaw notice system have an extremely high success rate for the local governments, particularly if the packages are done properly. And the burden of proof is just that it's likely to have happened. This is my last slide here, just about in terms of next steps. As outlined in the staff report, Ucluelet's regulatory bylaws were updated to include the violation and penalty language necessary to authorize the use of the bylaw notice system. And then at the same time, administrative updates were also addressed to improve clarity and consistency. Fines were also transferred from those regulatory bylaws to bylaw 2019, and they remain largely unchanged except for fines that were above $500 because the system has a $500 max. The MTI system is still, you can still use that system, especially if you want to address fines between the $500 and $3,000 mark. But we would just need to do a housekeeping amendment to match those bylaw provisions to the new bylaws. Where there were no provisions that had no fines, ones were assigned based on the fines charged by other local governments that participate in that Nanaimo registry, because you want to try consistent wherever possible. You will notice that the progressive fines were not included in bylaw 2019. No other municipality in BC does this through the bylaw notice system. One can issue fines daily if necessary, and they can be adjudicated in one hearing if required. So while the goal at this time to get the regulatory bylaws added so that the district can start utilizing the program as soon as possible, if necessary, staff can certainly come back to address any fines that need adjusting. With the refreshed bylaws, there was also the opportunity to transfer the fees that existed in the regulatory bylaws so they could be included in the all-encompassing fees and charges bylaw. And it also provided the opportunity to implement the new bylaw numbering system, which will to better track amendments. And details of that are outlined in Mr. Chow's report. Once the bylaws receive the first 3 readings, bond tickets will be ordered and a toolkit provided to the bylaw enforcement officer. And once adopted, a screening officer will be appointed and staff will be able to commence using the system. And happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for your presentation. A quick question. Can the fine be attributed to property taxes?
Yes. In some of the regulatory bylaws, it's actually it's outlined in there. Some of them can only be done through the collection agency, but there are certain instances, I believe it's like sewer and water, things like that, that can be added to the property taxes. And those ones, they have specific sections outlined in the bylaw that indicate that.
Great, thank you for that. One more question in this long list of consecutive numbered recommendations. There's 4 numbers missing. Is that done intentionally?
Yes, we had intended to go through all of the regulatory bylaws, but there were 4 of them that were going to create a little bit more, they needed a lot more thought involved because the implications of starting a new bylaw, I think there was for example, the residential mobile home bylaw had implications where it said that everybody was grandfathered up to a certain point, and that would warrant some further discussion with Mr. Brown before we could take a look at bringing those ones forward. But the plan is to, in fact, bring them forward. They just need a little bit more time.
Great, thanks for the explanation. Questions? Is your hand up, Mr. Harding? Oh, okay. All right. There is a long list of recommendations here.
Get the party started.
Get the party started, okay.
Okay, I move that council give first, second, and third reading to animal control and licensing bylaw number 2000-2026.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, that carries.
I move that council give first, second, and third reading to building regulation bylaw number 2001-2026.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, that carries.
I move that council give first, second, and third reading to business regulation and licensing bylaw number 2002-2026.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, that carries.
I move that council give first, second, and third reading to campground regulation bylaw number 2003-2026.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, that carries.
I move that council give first, second, and third readings to discharge of weapons and hunting and trapping regulation bylaw number 2004-2026.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, that carries.
I move that council give first, second, and third reading to fire department establishment and operations bylaw number 2005-2026.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, that carries.
I move that council give first, second, and third readings to garbage collection and regulation bylaw number 2007-2026.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, that carries.
Move that council give first, second, and third readings to harbor regulation bylaw number 2008-2026.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, that carries.
I move that council give first, second, and third reading to noise regulation bylaw 2009-2026.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, that carries.
I move that council give first, second, and third reading to outdoor burning bylaw number 2010-2026.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, that carries.
I move that council give first, second, and third readings to public property use regulation bylaw number 2011-2026.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Yeah.
None opposed, that carries.
Actually, no.
I move that council give first, second, and third readings to sewer regulation bylaw number 2013-2026.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, that carries.
Move that council give first, second, and third reading to single-use plastic regulation bylaw number 2015-2026.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, that carries.
I move that council give first, second, and third readings to traffic and parking regulation bylaw number 2016-2026.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, that carries.
I move that council give first, second, and third reading to unsightly premise regulation bylaw number 2017-2026.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, that carries.
I move that council give first, second, and third reading to fees and charges amendment bylaw number 1409-2026.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, that carries.
I move that council give first, second, and third readings to bylaw notice enforcement bylaw number 2019-2026.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, that carries.
And lastly, I move that council authorize the mayor and corporate officer to execute the Nanaimo bylaw notice dispute at adjudication registry agreement as attached to the bylaw notice enforcement bylaw number 2019-2026.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, that carries. Well, thank you for reading all those.
Well, I usually give it to Councillor Hoare, but
That's right. She's got allergies tonight.
what do you?
Top of the eyes.
All right, thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
The next bylaw is titled Council Remuneration, Benefits and Expense Reimbursement Repeal Bylaw number 1410-2026, first, second, and third readings, and it will be presented by Ed Chow, Director of Corporate Services.
Thank you, through Mayor to Council. This is a housekeeping item. Last meeting, Council adopted a new council compensation policy. So now we can have a bylaw to repeal the existing bylaw, both the new policy and the new policy and the repeal of the current bylaw will come effective in November 1st this year. Thank you.
Any questions for staff? Seeing none, there are three recommendations.
I'll move that council remuneration, benefits, and expense reimbursement repeal bylaw number 1410-2026 be read a first time.
I'll second.
Councillor Hoare seconds. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, that carries.
I'll move that council remuneration, benefits, and expense reimbursement repeal bylaw number 1410-2026 be read a second time.
I'll second.
Councillor Hoare seconds. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, that carries.
I'll move that council remuneration, benefits, and expense reimbursement repeal bylaw number 1410-2026 be read a third time.
I'll second.
Councillor Hoare seconds. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, that carries. All right, are there any notices of motion? Seeing none, there is one piece of correspondence on the agenda today. It's titled Kemp's Family regarding request for a letter of support for the Yuki Men's Shed. Does anybody want to speak to this one?
I would just like to say that I would like to write that letter of support. I'm happy to make that motion if it needs to happen.
It doesn't say it's for any particular type of grant, so I think it's just a generic letter of support.
Mhm.
So Councillor Hoare would like to move that we write a letter of support.
Yeah.
Councillor Mafty seconds. Any further discussion? Councillor Noel?
Mr. Harding, you've met with the group? Maybe give us an update, what you know?
Thank you, Mayor. I had one meeting with one of the main gentlemen from the group with the intention to continue to work on some options and come back. One of them, I think they were looking at some private property, looking at what some options were there. I did mention, that it's very common if there's something they want to build and there's opportunities to work towards utilizing some of our property. As Mr. Councilor Noel knows, or for example, the space where the old food bank is, that building will be removed in the near future. So there's different locations that those kinds of things can be worked on. We kind of left it there with the hope to circle back with the group when they got some more ideas. Yep.
Any further discussion?
I think it's such a great thing to support, so I'm fully behind it.
Okay. Seeing no further action required, all in favor? None opposed. That carries. Thank you. All right, we're on to council committee reports. Councillor Anderson isn't with us this evening. Councillor Hoare?
Well, the big one was that this past weekend we were at the Association of Vancouver Island and Coastal Communities meetings. So, always good to get together with our people from various communities and learn some new things. I would like to mention that I did a really amazing tour just before the meetings, which was a rewilding tour, and there's some really exciting things happening in Saanich with that, where there was there were two parts to the tour, and one was an elementary school where they're doing rewilding with elders and members of the First Nations communities, and they're planting native plants, and the kids were all involved in the plantings, and they took areas around the school zone which had like no tree cover, and the kids themselves were planting plants, and all the plants had reasons to be included, whether they were part of First Nations ceremonial or food source or something. And the kids all learned about the plants as well as planting the plants. And there was the liaison with the nation was there. It was really great. And some of the kids came out and told us about the plants that they'd planted and what the purpose of them was. And so that was kind of exciting to see their enthusiasm for that. And they were taught that they were planting the plants, but they were asked, like, you planted a cedar. Well, if we wanted to carve a canoe, like how many years do you think it would take to carve a canoe? And they were like, maybe 5 years. And of course, these are cedars that are really small. And so it's like, no, in 5 years, maybe you can carve a pen, like you can't carve a canoe. So they were learning that you're doing this for the generations down, not for yourself, but for your grandkids. So it was really interesting. And they had an elder in to bless the sites. And it was really lovely to hear and how impactful that was for the students. And then we walked down and we were and of course I didn't do something smart like write down. There was a river that they were working on rewilding, and it's right behind Tillicum Mall. And I've been to Tillicum Mall a million times. I've never noticed this park, and it was amazing to walk through. They took what had been an old European hawthorn forest, which nothing grows under European hawthorn. It's basically a problem plant, and they were planting wild trees and under shrubs, so snowberry and salal and ferns and all sorts of things. And you could really see in the areas where they'd done the work, like just how much more was happening. And there were birds. There was like, we spotted a bush tit nest in one of the trees and there was something going on in it. You could see it moving. So one of the bird was going in and out. Like it just the life there. The blue heron came down to fish in the part of the river where we were watching. Like this is all about like, let's keep encouraging people to, the work that Redfish does out here. It can also be done in our parks and stuff too. We don't have a lot of spaces like that, but just, it was really nice to be out on that walk and it really made an impact on me. I also attended really interesting talk on troubled waters that was talking about dealing with things like abandoned vessels, waterfront properties and liverboards. Just given some of the letters we've had recently, interesting to be part of. So, and there was actually, I didn't attend it, but there was a talk on community engagement. And so it is very topical that we are starting Yuki lessons. So, but yeah, that's about all I got. I did not come away with a quote this time. I epically failed, basically.
It's okay. You're forgiven. Just bring 2 next time. Councillor Mafty?
Not much to report. Unfortunately, my commitments with the Raincoast Education Society precluded my attendance of the conference, but I did attend the first weekend of our Shorebird Festival, which is currently running. If anyone wants to come and watch some birds, we'll be in Tofino. And Thursday night in this room, we're going to show a couple Shorebird movies. Details on our website. That's it.
Great. Thank you.
Short, sweet.
Councillor Noel?
AVICC, and the big win for me, as you know, there was 2 resolutions that I pushed forward, and I'm happy to see them. I think I've had resolutions get passed before, and I think the lessons learned for me is an obligation, and I'll be working with you, Mr. Harding. I think it's the follow-up letters. They get lost in the vat. It's great to celebrate the resolution gets passed, but my experience is that's where it kind of ends. And I think that's where the start of us to, with your support, getting a few letters to just to continue the little push back to mill rates, back to you, Mr. Catman. The reality is everybody needs to pay their portion in town. And, and I think that's where it's very evident when we look at the commercial mill rates right now. One would question, I don't want to point out certain buildings in town here, but a lot of them are paying residential tax when they should be paying commercial, which means it's everybody's not paying what they should be. And that was one of the resolutions there, was trying to get some help. BC Assessment was trying to corner me in the building there. I kind of shrugged them away there and kept running away. But I think, I think some follow-up letters to them about what they can do. I know they don't do much for us, but just realizing we need help. There shouldn't be like a 2-year process for us to question classifications. And just before our resolution, the city of Tofino had done the same kind of theme, which regarding mixed classifications and stuff like that. So we're all talking the same thing. We can't keep raising property tax. We got to just make sure everybody, start with the grounded stuff and make sure everyone's paying their proper portion. And then the cellular one, I think, was a big one too. So anyways, and then I also just acknowledge on behalf of the Accessibility Committee, the fact that we were one of the recommendations out of today's regarding the hard sports. One of the things of being on committees, usually there's no asks from the council. And I think that's a start of just trying to get some engagement. That goes a long way for volunteers to just be asked what they think. And traditionally they don't. So I just want to just say thank you from the entire group. And that's all I have to report.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Noel. I have to catch up because I didn't report my meetings at the last council meetings. So get ready, Flo. Right. April 2nd, I was at the Resort Community Collective Mayors meeting. So that's when when the 14 of us RMI communities, the mayors all get together on Zoom or Teams, I guess it is, and just talk about what our resort municipalities are up to. That's always a great get together. April 3rd, I had a quick meeting with Andy Laidlaw. He was our former interim CAO, and it was nice to catch up with him. April 5th, I gave out the awards for the pickleball tournament, which is always fun to do. I think that was their 3rd annual Total Fluke, it's called, pickleball tournament. And on the 8th, I had a Barclay Community Forest Corporation board meeting at the Tokwat office, followed by an ACRD board meeting on Zoom, and then a 6 o'clock Tourism Ucluelet AGM at Blackrock. So that was a busy day. April 9th, a morning meeting with New Leaf, which is a company that we're working with for food security, potentially some projects with them. And then a 4 o'clock meeting with VAIA, Vancouver Island Economic Alliance. We were doing a road trip, and they were visiting Ucluelet on the 9th at the brewery, so had some networking with them. April 14th at 1 o'clock, had a meeting with Cheryl McClay. She came here in person. She's from the Ministry of Jobs and Economic Growth, so always good to catch up with her. Followed by a 3 o'clock Harbour Authority meeting here. April 21st, I had lunch with the mayor of Powell River, which was nice to meet him. He happened to be in town. And later that day, a meeting with Minister Green, and she is with the Emergency Management and Climate Readiness Ministry. And Chief Geddes was on that call as well, and wanted to know if they could support us with any sort of emergency planning. And one of the things I would love to see happen again is a drill for the whole community, as if there was a tsunami, and I think it's been about 10 years since we've done one within the whole community, and involve all the emergency services groups. So anyway, that's something that's kind of on my radar for a future project. On the 22nd, I had an ACRD board meeting. And then, of course, this past weekend, most of us were at AVICC in Victoria. And I did a tour pre-conference as well. It was kind of a combined tour. There was a walking tour called Victoria Placemaking. And that the City of Victoria actually has 2 staff members that are dealing with placemaking. So it's giving out grants and to organizations that want to improve their community with physical, tangible things like park benches and ferry doors and all sorts of interesting things. Those little mini library things that you see cropping up everywhere. So they actually have 2 full-time employees doing that job, and a hard, an office that's actually like 2 doors down from the convention center to support groups that want to just get together and book time in a space to get together and talk about anything that they want to talk about. And then the second part of that tour was on a West Coast Marine Response vessel, the KJ Gardner, huge marine spill response vessel, and that tour was really fabulous. And then a walking tour back again to the conference center. So that was my pre-conference tour, similar to what Councillor Hoare did with her rewilding. And then last night was the farewell for Chief Geddes over at the Eagle's Nest. So that was a nice little send-off for him. There was a good turnout from the whole fire brigade and those that wanted to wish him well. So that's it for me. All right, we're now moving on to question period. This is an opportunity for the public to ask questions and comment on matters within Council's jurisdiction. Representations about bylaws that Council is prohibited from holding a public hearing on, or bylaws that were subject to a public hearing, are not permitted at this time. Are there any audience members that wish to address Council? Yes. Go ahead.
Thank you. Danielle Edwards. I live at 1652 Holly Crescent.
Can you,
And-
move the mic?
Sorry, is that
Yeah,
better?
that's
Okay,
way better.
sorry. So I had a few questions, 3 questions that I'd like to raise today, and I'm going to go through it quickly to respect the time limit. So this is respect to the recreational facility and the dog park. So first, on overall process, the approach taken has turned what could have been a slam dunk good news story for this community into one of disappointment and hard feelings, pitting different park user groups against one another and making a large swath of the community feel very disrespected. Finding out about the plan when we arrived with our dogs in December to be met with machinery and holes dug in the ground was not an auspicious start. And that was the start for many of us. At no point was a prior talk of a pickleball court at Tugwell Fields interpreted to be in place of the dog park. Now, there were multiple times when it felt like we were being gaslit. Reducing the dog park by more than half and situating a pickleball court next to it was not maintaining the existing dog park, and no 0.1 to 1 acre in size is not actually ideal for a dog park. That's at the lower end for what's suitable for cities. So on process, this could have been handled in a much better way that brought community together rather than tearing it apart. And I hope that the mayor, council, and staff will reflect on that when it is time to engage the community in future. Early, often, transparent, respectful. These are the watchwords for a good process. So my question is really, how will the process of engagement on community projects be handled going forward? My second question, just jumping right through, I'd really appreciate greater information on the plan development, including timelines and sequencing. So in particular, I very much hope that the dog park will remain open through the summer, particularly given the current conflict situation with wolves and the importance of this space for people with limited mobility and other constraints. On a personal note, as my father battles cancer, the dog park is a critically important space for him. So will the dog park remain open throughout construction of the pickleball court, or at least for the vast majority of the time? And will any closures be limited in nature and widely communicated? And finally, I would ask that there be a commitment to proper maintenance of the dog park as is provided for other recreational spaces, as well as consideration for an additional dog park space in town. Having one dog park that meets the bare minimum and now will be adjacent to a hard surface pickleball court does not really meet the needs of the community. And I ask Mayor and Council if consideration will be given to additional recreational spaces for community members seeking places where they can safely bring their dogs off leash. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your questions. And you are welcome to contact Abby Fortune with those questions, and I'm sure she would be happy to help you out with those. Does anyone else in the audience wish to speak? Yes.
Hello, I'm Shara D'Amato of 125 Garden Street, and I'll be speaking to, I guess, the same topic, the Hard Sports Facility and Dog Park Project, but from the perspective of accessibility. So under the Accessibility BC Act, the nearest washroom for a new build servicing the public to a population such as ours that would be using it that much. Sorry. Blah, 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 blah. Oh yeah, the nearest washroom for a build servicing the public must be within 45 meters of the facility. So ours at Tugwell obviously is over 200 meters away. There also must be an accessible path to the washroom, which obviously we don't have either. And the washroom entrance must also be accessible, as well as internally, but we already have that covered. Our Tugwell washroom is accessible on the inside. I did email council, I believe, on April 10th or so, suggesting like it'd be such a quick public works little project, you know, because the only issue is just with the deck, so to speak, on the outside, right? So there's only stairs, there's no ramp, and there's quite a high lip as well. So I feel like I showed my husband, he was like, I feel that would be like an afternoon project for the public works folks and not very expensive either. So it'd be nice to just kind of get that set up before this kind of rolls out more, just because that'll make us sort of look like we are putting a priority to accessibility in the community. So under section 3.8 of the BC Building Code, all pedestrian entrances shall be accessible and connect to an accessible exterior path of travel. They also have these automatic door requirements for new builds, but I feel like our project, that might not apply, right? But just something to look into. certainly under phase 1, I don't think it would apply, and even phase 2 potentially. But I did a little bit of checking with some people from Accessibility with C, and it sounds like it's more for us probably going to be an issue of like handle heights, right? Things like that, and like angles and widths of gates and things like that. Yeah, I'm very happy to hear about the double gates at the dog park. Very, very happy. That will be really adding a big safety measure for our dogs. And oh, I was wanting to request that for the double gate, the widths and angles of the gates be designed with mobility aids in mind, right? So for example, if someone has a dog and they can't exercise them by walking them and they have a mobility scooter, something like that, it'd be really nice if they could take their dog to the dog park. We just, want to keep access universal as much as possible. And then in light of the recent wolf-dog interactions, many of us are concerned about the park closures due to constructions for this project. So yeah, basically before breaking ground, I request that an accessibility compliance review and a park disruption construction mitigation plan be provided to our community. Thank you.
Thanks, Shura. Councillor Noel is our accessibility chairperson.
Yeah, so just so you maybe you didn't hear it in the report, but I'll pass it off to Mr. Harding here. But from my understanding, what Doug had mentioned was the plan is to make sure the dog park is maintained and done. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that, Richard?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I think I can address both the first questions and also these other ones. So
Yeah,
all the council has done tonight was provide direction for staff to proceed with detailed design. So nothing has been approved to be started, anything other than detailed design. And with that is to work with user groups, including the dog user groups, on those designs. And then we'll come back with a detailed design. If council wants us to proceed, we'll proceed accordingly, and there'll be lots of notice on the how that construction will proceed and go forward. So we're still so with the overall planning process, this is it on a development process, and then so we get some approval to go. We'll start with the detailed design and then proceed that, including with all those detailed design is us meeting the requirements of the building code, of which we do, and which Mr. Brown will keep our feet to the fire on that. I think, did I miss anything else on the question? I think also what we'll do is, as you mentioned, is if you heard of the Yuki Listens, we have now project pages. And so as now council's given us direction, we'll update that project page with more detailed information. We also mentioned on the requirements, this is also being referred to our accessibility committee, which will focus specifically on accessible issues.
Thanks, Mr. Harding. And do you know if the dog park will stay open during construction?
Well, the dog park will be the first thing that's rebuilt. So that's the goal. So we rebuild the new dog park, and then we go into the other part of it. So that you kind of have to do that's right now looking at what we need to do is, if council gives us direction to proceed, we start with building the new dog park, then we start with the other part. So
great.
Yeah.
Good news. Thank you. Anyone else in the audience wish to, yes.
Hello, Brandon Manzardo, 386 Pacific Crescent. Firstly, I'd really like to thank staff, UT staff and council for taking into consideration a lot of the things that have been brought up about the dog park. Obviously, I've been a loud proponent for the dog park remaining the same, and a lot of those considerations have been heard. So I do want to just say thank you for that. Accessibility, or going to the accessibility committee is fantastic. Having the expansion of it to line up with 1 acre is fantastic as well. One thing I would like to bring up as consideration is the alternative layout that I had been attempting to propose on Tugwell. All we've really heard from that, as far as it being not suitable, is because of safety areas between fields on Tugwell. And from the layout, of Tugwell that was shown, we have our multiple youth sports fields with more than 40 meters between each. So I would just like to understand what a definition of that safety area would be, because that's more than half of a field width between fields, and just a massive waste of space realistically if we're not using it. And to have it simply explained away because of a safety area and then not define it just seems very dismissive, when there is a massive amount of space on Tugwell Field that can be used for hard sports facilities. And with that location, we can also save so much as a community. We wouldn't need to add sound barriers. We wouldn't need to explore the potential of building washrooms closer for accessibility purposes. We would save money on parking lot costs. Yeah, there's just so much to be considered as far as costs in this, because like everybody, I would love to see the development of recreational spaces in Ucluelet. And phase 2 is going to have the most value for our community. Once it is covered, it becomes an emergency safety space, and then a year-round facility that people can use instead of just seasonal. So until we secure funding for phase 2, great to hear that we're have that potential for grant money for it. But I think every dollar spent is pulling us further away from phase 2. And if we don't take consideration for cutting costs and not being dismissive of alternatives that have viability, and instead of just dismissing them completely. That said, like, the dog park is a space that is highly essential for so many community members with all sorts of different needs. And with our expansion of recreation in Ucluelet, it would be great to see expansion of recreation that doesn't just pander to those with ability, you know? It's one of the very few recreation spaces that we have in Ucluelet that caters specifically to those without ability. And to bring change to it creates barriers to accessibility. If the dog park is closed while we're doing renovations to it, or building the pickleball courts there, like, all of these things are barriers to accessibility, and it just decreases the value of the very, like, potentially the only space that has the priority of those without ability in mind. For me, I can walk my dog elsewhere. I'm fine. But my entire purpose with pushing for keeping this facility the same is for those who can't. And those people who can't are also more unlikely to stand up and be able to speak at moments like this. And yeah, I just think that's a very important consideration. So, but yeah, thanks again for consideration of expanding it. And I still think we can do better and bring phase 2 to life easier if it were explored more in depth on the other side of Tugwell Field. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Brandon. Yes, please.
Yeah, I don't want to. So, yeah, I don't have anything prepared here. I just, with what Brandon was saying there, I went up to Tugwell Field and I ribboned out the exact dimensions on that field, and that's a massive field. And I saw the way that it's been developed, and I know there's going to be. I talked to people actually who were playing soccer at the time, who really liked the way it was because it's so big and it's so great. And sometimes they have 4 teams playing on that field, and that would have constrained it a bit. But I have pictures of what I ribboned out, and I can show it to people if they want to see it. There's still huge amounts of area up there. If you put that entire development in that corner by the, even if you moved it over a bit, because I know you can, because you actually had the dog park coming there, you could move it over out of the field a bit. That would help with the situation around that. Tugwell Field can easily deal with that And it's a much better place to do it than on top of our dog park.
Thanks, Dan. Sure.
Sorry, I've just in regards to phase 2, the funding for phase 2. I can't remember what day it was, but I emailed council about this. But Accessibility BC had told me about several grants available, ranging from, I believe the minimum was like 25,000 all the way up to $1 million, and there were about 7 of them, I believe. So I just guess I'm wondering why that hasn't been looked into for funding for phase 2, because then things would all make sense, you know? And I'm not an expert, but I don't think there would have to be tons of, you know, tweaks to get us to be considered an accessible facility, right? Not really. So yeah, it seems like a no-brainer to me. But I know grant applications are not, you know, the funnest things to, you know, to do, but I think it could be worth it for sure, at least looking into it, right? Thank you.
Yeah. Did you copy Abby on that, or should I just forward that to her?
Oh, I just sent it to the
Mayor and council?
I think so. The general.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
I didn't know that she wouldn't get this. Okay.
We can forward it to her.
Thank you.
Yeah. And as far as phase 2 goes, I think we're just dealing with phase 1 right now, but that's great information to have for when we're addressing phase 2. Mr. Hardy?
Yeah, thank you. I meant to add it to my notes when I was talking about the going for the other grant, but we're constantly looking at other grants and what we can go for. And so, and then the grant that we did mention will include both phases of the project. So we'll be always looking for ways to fund projects like this in different sources.
Okay, I think we've exhausted everyone in the audience. Is there anyone attending by Zoom or telephone that wishes to address council?
No, Mayor.
And have we received any emails to communityinput@ucluelet.ca during the meeting?
We have not.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, I will move that the April 28th, 2026 regular council meeting be closed to the public pursuant to the following sections of the community charter. 90(1)(a), personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the municipality or another position appointed by the municipality. 90(1)(c), labor relations or other employee relations. 90(1)(e), the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements, if the council considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality. And 90(1)(g), litigation or potential litigation affecting the municipality.
I'll second.
Councillor Hoare seconds. All in favor?